Are you an athlete who would like to maximize your performance to succeed at the top level? Head on over to my website at jacobandreae.com and book a free 15-minute discovery call to discover if and how I can help you. G'day and welcome to the Mind Your Body Show. Today I'm speaking to Shannon Millar. Shannon, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So one place I like to start with asking every guest is, what did we interrupt in your day today?
Spreadsheet work, to be absolutely honest. I'm going through a spreadsheet of players and updating all their details and contacts. So yeah, I'm happy to get away and have a chat.
Fair enough. So you mentioned updating a whole list of players. Tell me what you're doing that for. What's this role that you're in at the moment?
So I work for AFL and I'm the talent manager for NT. So that's across boys and girls programs, looking at probably the age group of like 15 through to 18 years old. I was looking at the most talented players within the NT and I guess working to give them opportunities outside of NT to ultimately get drafted. Just going through our list for 2023 and my sort of aim over the next couple of weeks, because I'm based in Darwin and the local NTFL season kicks off this weekend. So my goal is to sort of connect in with coaches at all the different clubs to start building those relationships and work so the players get the best out of the NTFL season, but also, working with them so we can, make sure they're performing really well leading into the academy season, which is next year.
Yeah, awesome. So how did this all come about, this role?
Funny story. I didn't actually apply for it. They sort of approached me. I've always been involved in, I guess, coaching across netball and footy, and being involved in the academy programs across the boys and girls as assistant coaches. So really enjoyed that sort of coaching side of things. And then, the talent manager role was advertised. I think it was advertised for a while. I was approached by Sam Gibson, who's the CEO currently, and he asked me, would I be interested in applying? So I kind of went through the application process and, then was successful in receiving the role. So thought I'd take it on. I've never sort of done it, I guess, worked in sport full time. It's always been as a volunteer coach at different community clubs or the academy. So it's cool to sort of, I guess, be involved and try and create some really positive changes to give these kids more opportunities.
Always nice when you're actually asked to apply for a role. Must have felt good.
Yeah, it's never happened to me before, to be honest. So it was nice to be asked. It's nice to be, I guess, respected in that way, especially in, I guess, male-dominated industry and sport. So it's cool to sort of have that opportunity to work with some great people and, create some change.
So let's go right back to the beginning and tell me about the Shannon Millar story. Where did it all begin?
Originally from like country Victoria, little town. If you drive through it and blink, you'll probably miss it. That's how small it is. My grandmother still lives in the same house my mum grew up in. And but my dad's a builder, and the building trade back when I was a kid was just really quiet in that like country Victoria area. So we'd been to Darwin on a holiday and mum absolutely loved it. So we relocated because building trade was going off back then. So I was about 13 when we moved to Darwin. So did sort of high school in the territory, played a bit of netball, always loved footy growing up as a kid, being from Victoria. Got brainwashed very young. My dad's a big Saints supporter, so now I'm completely brainwashed into Saints, and they make you very resilient. Let me just tell you that. I'm a very resilient person. Relocated to Darwin. Involved in sports, like was a swimmer as well, played netball, just loved being around sort of active people and being active myself. And continued on with netball moved to Queensland to play some netball down there for 5 years. Then my mum got ill, so Dad was kind of struggling at home on his own with my brother and sister sort of off. My sister had her own family. My brother was a little bit young. So I decided to move back, and that's when I got into footy and started playing football myself. And that's when I guess I had that passion for football, especially once I started coaching football after I stopped playing. And yeah, I just sort of found it really challenging, in particular because it was male dominated. And I was just like, oh, well, this is cool if I can, get in there as a female, especially as I stopped playing, the sort of female space, I guess, took off with having the AFLW start up. Then there was like a really strong pathway. So I was really excited to get involved in that space. And yeah, it's a lot different to coaching netball. You've got a netball court of 7 people you have to watch. A football field, you got 22 to watch. So I just find it really sort of exciting and challenging for myself, and I love to learn. So kind of got involved in football that way, and yeah, now I'm here, which is exciting.
What was that little town named in country Victoria?
Piangle.
Oh, I have
Little
no
town.
idea. Where's that?
Yeah, it's like on the Murray River. It's up north, so it's actually across from New South Wales town called Tullybuck, and Tullybuck is a part of the Murray Valley League, football and netball league. But yeah, it's got like a corner store, it's got a post office, and it's got like your country fire brigade, and that's it. It used to have a primary school, but the primary school's shut down, so it doesn't even have a school anymore. So
Oh, really?
yeah, I went back and I showed my partner around only 2 years ago, and they were just like, oh wow, that's it. I'm like, yep, we did the tour in 5 minutes. This is the town. This is it. There's not much here.
One of my aunties lives in Bright. How far is it from Bright?
I think Bright's on the other side of Victoria. So this is
Okay.
sort of as you go into Adelaide. So it's between basically Majura and Swan Hill.
Okay.
So which I think Bright's the other direction out
Yeah,
of Melbourne.
okay.
So
So
yeah.
what was sport like there growing up?
Look, to be honest, there probably wasn't a lot of actual sport or opportunities. We were always active as kids. Like we grew up not on a farm. As I said, my dad's a builder, but like farmers all around, and we were in the middle of my uncle's like vineyard. So we'd often, just be outside on the bikes. We'd say bye to mum as long as we're home by sunset. All was good. And we'd just be out the motorbikes running amok that way. You obviously had your school sports and things like that you participated in. But it wasn't until I didn't actually start playing any competitive kind of sport until I got into swimming. So I was probably about 12 when I started to swim, and did that competitively right through to I was about 17. And then I didn't start playing netball until I was probably about 13 years old. So again, actual younger years, it was just more, running amok as a kid out in the middle of the paddock, or, we had a sheep that we would chase around and just torment this poor sheep in the backyard. So it was things like that you did as kids.
What were your main events in swimming?
P.S. I'm an awful swimmer. Like I wasn't winning events at all. I may have like long limbs and be tall, but I definitely wasn't winning. But yeah, breaststroke was probably my favorite and my strongest. Butterfly, have no hope in hell ever to get that coordination right. I did try a few times, but was never my strong suit. But I just, loved it because like my brother and sister did it as well. So it was kind of like almost like a family day. On a Saturday, we'd go to like a country swim carnival, and it would be a whole sort of family event where we're with our friends, and mum was out there with us. So it was just a good time, and kept us active, and I really enjoyed that time.
So you mentioned a holiday to Darwin. Was it the whole family that came up, or just your mum?
No, it was the whole family. So we actually, mum and dad took us out of school for, it was probably about 6 to 8 months. And we actually in a caravan and travelled around Australia. So We travelled right up the centre to Darwin, and then right around the east coast of Australia. So awesome trip. I remember the school teacher just printed off a heap of basically homework we had for 6 months. We had to sit there, and every day Mum made sure we were doing some sort of maths or English or reading a book or something like that while we travelled. But yeah, when we came to Darwin, Mum just fell in love with it. She had a best friend up here. So she already had that sort of connection or someone she knew. And yeah, they just fell in love with it. So we ended up spending a month here during that travel, and we weren't meant to be here that long. But then it was almost like a year and a half later, and we've packed up and moved.
Yeah, that's freaky. I've got a really good mate who did that. He's one of three, and with his mum and dad, they went from Perth up the west coast to Darwin, got to Darwin
Yeah.
and stopped, and didn't continue down the east coast and never went back. I think I've heard that story repeat itself a few times.
Yeah, I think it's just that sort of place. You either love it or it's not for you. And I think once you love it, you just end up staying, and you stay for a long time. It's sometimes forever, or it's at least 10 years. And it is the kind of place where it is just has that lifestyle about it. The people as well, because it's so transient as well. You're just always meeting new people, finding those new connections. And yeah, it's a really cool place. It's really hot, especially now with the build up. But apart from that, it's hard to not love the place, really.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was born and bred, and I've tried to move away 3 times, and it's never worked. It's so
You
easy
keep
here. I
coming
like it.
back.
Yeah. So I think we're about the same age, which means that if you lobbed up in Darwin and you went to high school here, that should have been around mid to late 90s, correct?
Yeah, so I graduated in 99.
Yeah. So a
Yeah.
year before me. So what school did you go to?
A Lachlan College I went to.
And what was that
So
like?
yeah, it was really well, for me, it was really good because obviously I was coming from a small country town where I went to a primary school. The primary school as a whole had from prep through to year 7. That's what they did primary school back then. I sound really old. But we had 60 people in the whole entire school. So for me to then move to Darwin's just a huge city. And I was just like, oh my God, 13 years old. So the school I went to, a Lachlan, was massive for me, but really it was a small school. So in my cohort, I think we had probably about 30 to 40 kids, which is nearly my whole school, my whole primary school. So I was just like, oh my God, this is huge. But really it was a small sort of Catholic college. It's grown a lot more now, and it's a much bigger school. But back then it was a very new school. They'd only just brought in year 11 and 12. But yeah, it was a really good experience for me. I found some of my bestest friends, and I'm still really good friends with a lot of them these days. And it was just because it was small, it wasn't a huge transition for me to then go into a massive, school like Darwin High School where there's, a lot more kids. So yeah, really
400
enjoyed it.
per age group.
Oh, is there? Yeah,
Yeah, so
see,
there's about
yeah.
400 to 500 per grade level, grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12.
Yeah. See, a country girl like me coming from school, a whole school of 50 into a school like that, I think I would have freaked out. So I was glad I had that sort of transition into a Lachlan where it was a lot smaller. And it was just up the road from where Mum and Dad had brought a house. So it was really easy for us just to walk to actual school. My brother and sister went to Holy Family, which was right next door. So it was just really convenient for all of that, especially just transitioning into a new state and a new town and all of that sort of stuff you have to deal with as a young person when you relocate.
Yeah, so once you were in Darwin, what was the first sport that you got into? Was it footy, netball?
Nah, definitely. I didn't start playing footy until I was 25, because that was always a boy sport. And it was never, and my dad was real strong on that. It was really funny when I started playing footy, but I'll tell that story in a minute. But I started playing netball, and I was took up swimming again. So when we relocated, I got into the Darwin I think it was called the Darwin Swim Club, and I forgot, they're based at Parat Pool, I think. Well, that's where we trained, and then got into netball. So started just playing sort of junior netball. The club at the time, which they're not around anymore, was called Checkmates. Funniest name for a netball club, but anyway. So got into that, which was, for me, it was probably the first time I've actually played sort of competitive sport, in a team sport too, because I've always done swimming, which is very sort of individualized. And I think that sort of being a swimmer definitely helps with your sort of, I guess, your mental toughness, and your focus, because you're in that water on your own for, can be a short time. It could be a long time, depending on what event you're doing. So it was my first time actually playing a team sport, and it was really good. So sort of got into netball and swimming, which that's where I met, 90% of my best friends is through sport. So it's a great avenue to meet people.
I got into swimming for a little bit because I was doing surf lifesaving, and I wasn't bad at swimming. I was a decent swimmer, not competitively, but I was, a good swimmer. And I used to hate just following a black line up and down. And through surf lifesaving, I had a friend, her name was Amy McDonald, who you may or may not know.
I
And
do know Amy. Yep.
she would say that she would do her maths homework while she was swimming laps, looking at this black line. Was there anything that you used to do to take your mind away from the numbness of going up and down a black line?
I don't know. I probably still do it now. And people, because I do a lot of walking, like I walk my dogs, and I go for runs and things like that. And people and I don't listen to music. I don't listen to podcasts. I don't do anything. It's just me and my thoughts. And people are like, how do you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm happy to do it. I love doing it. And it's just, it's a time to think. So I couldn't tell you. I don't think I've ever focused on one specific thing. I think I've just got a habit of just being in my own head sometimes and just thinking and sorting things out. And it could be my day, it could be like homework, it could have been absolutely anything. Because I know at the moment, when I still sort of do a lot of stuff where I'm on my own and it's just me going for a walk, going for a swim, or whatever it might be, it's a lot of just working out the day, or what's coming up for me. Being a coach, that's my thinking time, and that's where I come up with a lot of my sort of ideas. So, being a coach, I usually come up with like a theme for the day, like for the match day, like some sort of, theme or word or what we're going to focus on. And that's where I come up with the ideas, is when I'm out on my own just thinking. But people get amazed and think I'm really strange for not having headphones in when I'm doing things. They're just like, how do you do that? I'm like, oh, it's just, I love it. It's great. Works
That's
for me.
awesome. I love that. I used to do a similar thing. I listen to music now, but I used to run and just listen to like the wind through the trees or birds chirping, whatever, even just traffic. And funnily enough, I kind of run this similar loop to what I see you walking. And so often I would see you walking your dogs in the morning when I'm driving to work. So it's cool to know that now that's you doing your like little meditation, planning your coaching stuff.
Yeah. It's 100%. That's where 99% of my ideas for coaching, even just being in the role I'm in now, coming up with things to make, I don't know, the processes better, just everything. It's just, that's where I do my thinking. That's where my ideas, and I usually come home and I'm like, right, I need to write that down somewhere. I find my phone or find a piece of paper. Like, it's really funny, but I love it. That's what I do.
Yeah, someone said to me, it was actually a cooking teacher said to me once, something about meditation. And I said, oh, I don't really, not that I'm against meditation, I love it. But I said, I don't really meditate. And she was like, yeah, but what do you like to do? And I said, oh, I love running. I love just going for a run. And she said, oh, well, that's your meditation. So I think like, you can go for runs, bike rides, swims, or walks, anything like that. And it can be like meditation.
Yeah, I think once you find what works for you, you just have to stick with it. I'm not a big person where you sit there and actually room silent and all that kind of stuff, and have the music playing and really kind of deep breathing. That's probably not for me. I 90% fall asleep when I do that. So for me, it's actually just being on my own and being in my own thoughts, but actively doing something like going for a walk or a bike ride or swimming. So, yeah.
So you've started to touch on some coaching. So if we go from your netball playing career with the Checkmates, I know that you ended up with Hoggies, and that was a very successful team that you, I think, were playing in, but you were definitely coaching from my memory. How did that, or had that, tell me about that sort of period of time through coaching and playing netball. How'd you get from Checkmates into Hoggies and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, so Checkmates basically folded. I think I only played there like my junior years. Once I sort of turned 17, 15, Checkmates had folded. So I moved to a club called Uni Sharks. They've now folded as well. I've got a habit of clubs folding, but that's okay. And Uni Sharks, that's where I started. I was 15. So I played my first sort of senior like competition at 15. So I was playing sort of the A grade here in Darwin. When I moved away, when I was about 17, I think I was about 18, I moved to Queensland. When I came back at age sort of 24, 25, I wasn't going to play netball, but a friend called me late one night, like 10 o'clock, and was just like, you have to come play netball and be involved. And it was called, Uni Sharks had changed their name to Uni Hoggies, or Hoggies. So that's where I got involved with Hoggies, and was there for pretty much right through to when I sort of retired at sort of 34, 33 or 35, however old I was. And yeah, I was just a player for the first couple of years, but then I sort of moved into, I guess, a playing coaching role. I've always sort of coached junior netball, so under 15s, under 16s. But yeah, then I sort of became that player coach. We were successful in the sense that we were always competitive every single year, but I do know playing, and I'm pretty sure it was 7 in a row, we played grand finals. So we made the grand final for the Premier League division, and 7 in a row we lost grand finals. Could not win one to save my life. But that's okay. Remember, I barracked for St Kilda, so I'm resilient and I've got a strong mind because I was a swimmer. So we've established that. So I was determined to keep going. But anyway, so it was sort of that 7th, 8th year we made the grand final again. And we ended up winning. So that was really awesome to be that sort of player coach and actually come out with that win. But yeah, I tell you what, there's some grand finals there where there was tears afterwards because, you know, was one grand final where we lost by a goal. And I was just like, are you kidding me? We lost by a goal. But that grand final we won was amazing. We then went on to win the grand final the following year. So we won back-to-back grand finals. The year after that, we made finals but didn't make the grand final. But then we came back the year after and won the grand final again. So ended up winning 3 grand finals playing netball, which was amazing, but definitely have lost my fair share. And losing 7 in a row was pretty tough. Like by the 7th, I was just like, okay, I think I'm just done. I'm going to retire. But anyway, stuck in there, and I'm glad I did because it was well rewarded in the end. But yeah, just always been involved in that sort of giving back to the sport. So that's why I got into coaching. I was never really, I'd umpire and help out with umpiring, but that wasn't really my strong suit. But actually coaching and helping sort of young people and improve them was always just something I really enjoyed and sort of passionate about. So that's kind of why I sort of always helped out the juniors and then became that sort of player coaching role as well.
You've just sparked a memory. And so that, did we do some stuff on video analysis together? A guy called Paul Mead came to me probably around 2012, 13 and said he wanted to start this business. And so we started this business together called Darwin Academy of Sport. And one of the things that we were doing was video analysis, I think using Rick Nolan's software,
Program.
Sports Clip Maker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Were we doing that with Hoggies?
Yes, you were. So Paul came in. God, you are. How did you remember that? Um,
Are you an Aussie rules footballer who would like to maximize your performance to succeed at the top level? My Australian Rules Football Dynamic Group Coaching Program is a 12-phase program that has been curated from my 15 plus years working as a strength and conditioning coach with local footballers right through to AFLW players at Adelaide and Richmond. To get instant access to my Australian Rules Football Dynamic Group Coaching Program, simply head on over to jacobandre.com/Australian-rules-football. Was that
Paul came
what I
in.
want to know? Is this the year that you won the grand final or lost?
No, well, he was involved for a couple of years. The year this was probably he was involved like 2 years in a row where we did lose, but then in that third year he was still involved and we ended up winning that year. So yeah, that was the first one. But yeah, the first 2 years where we did a lot of that analysis and things like that, we didn't quite come out with the wins. But then he moved away, so that kind of fell away.
Oh, well, that's what it was then. Paul finally moved
Yeah.
away. It was done.
But yeah, no, we sort of, I'm one of those people that I love to just try different things. So, and I love to like, I'm open to learning as well. So bringing in that sort of video analysis, bringing in, experts to help with, sports training or strength or whatever it might be to get the best out of each individual in the team. I'm all about it. So we tried pretty much everything through all of that sort of coaching time to just try and get the best out of the players. So, yeah.
So, talking about grand finals and winning them, in the last couple of weeks, I've had a few different guests on who are men's Premier League coaches. And Ryan Ayres and Anthony Vallejo both talked about the value of losing a grand final before winning one. Then Shannon Motlop talked about how he didn't think you needed to lose one. Funnily enough, he obviously played in his first AFL season and won a grand final. But where do you sit on it, on the value of losing a grand final and the importance of losing a grand final before winning one?
Oh, look, if you can go out and win a grand final in your first season, you try. I bring that on, like that would be amazing. But I think for people to develop and grow and get better and really sort of keep pushing themselves, you always have to lose something or you always have to fail at something at some point. So if that's failing to win a grand final in your first, crack, that's okay because you've learned from that and hopefully you can grow. So I'm all about, failing, and it may not be a grand final. I coached Nightcliff for 5 seasons in the Women's Premier League. When I first started coaching them, they hadn't won a game in like 2 years or something. 2 years, I think, 2 seasons, they hadn't won a game. And they were losing games every week by 100 points or more. So that first season wasn't about, getting to a grand final and winning a grand final. It was just picking up those small successes and trying to just improve on those. But we definitely failed a lot. So if you go into a grand final and you haven't won one before and you end up losing, like it's just all learning you can take away from that. I think it's just important that no matter what we try, we're always going to fail at it. No one's perfect. We're all human. Failing's just part of it. It's just how we handle that failure and how we adapt and how we grow from that to be able to come out better and bigger to be able to take it on. Well, with the Nightcliff, we ended up making the grand final in my 4th season. We lost that against Darwin Buffaloes. So that was a learning for everyone because 90% of those girls had never played in any kind of grand final before. So it was definitely a learning. The next season we went out, we still made top sort of 4, I think, at the end of the season, but didn't quite make the grand final. But yeah, it was definitely a learning curve and it makes those players hungry too. So if you get to a grand final and you haven't won, it just makes you hungry to try and get that and actually get that success. I had 7 in a row. So I was definitely resilient to know, like, I really want this success. I'm not actually going to back out of this, and I'm not going to walk away until I have this grand final success, because I want to know what that feels like at the end of the game when everyone's hugging each other because they're so excited they've just won. I want that feeling. I don't want that feeling of, not quite getting there. So it definitely helps to not be successful the first time, but God, if I got it the first time, I'd be on top of the world. Would have been a great feeling to get it the first time.
So after the 7 years, when you finally win that premiership, was that your last year with netball?
No, so I still went back and I played the following year. I then sort of took a step back, and I just coached the next 2 seasons. So I did win a season with netball just as a sideline coach, which that was the second season I'd been a sideline coach, and it was the first time we'd made a grand final as a sideline coach. So to win that on the sideline as well, when you actually can't control what the players are doing or can't control the game because you're not out there, was a really big learning experience for me, but really sort of proud to be able to be a sideline coach and have that success on the netball court. After that, that's when I sort of stepped away from netball because I got quite involved in football, and I was just struggling to do netball and football. It was pretty much 12 months of the year. So netball's played in the dry season here in Darwin, and the football's played in the wet season. So it was pretty much 12 months of the year I was involved in sport, and I kind of just needed that break for myself, and I was really enjoying the challenge of football. So I sort of made that a priority.
So what was the motivation behind getting into football, especially when you said your dad didn't believe that, please correct me if I'm wrong here, that females shouldn't be playing the sport?
Back in the day, yeah, he's a huge fan. He watches more AFLW than I do now. So, like, he's a massive fan. However, when I first started playing it, I think I was 24, 25, and I came home one day because I'd moved back in with my mum and dad, and I came home one day and I'm like, I'm going to play football. And dad's just like, what are you talking about? Women do not play football. It's a boy sport. Basically you're an idiot. What are you talking about? I'm like, nah, I'm going to give it a crack. Like, all the netball players play. So it's like all my mates are doing it. It'll be fun. Like, it's learning something new because I've never played it. I'm going to give it a crack. So I did. And I remember he came out and watched our first football game. And I remember after the game, like, we were awful. We weren't great at all. It was very social back then. There was no pathway for women's football. There was no juniors. It was just like your senior sort of football. And a lot of us were playing for the first time. And Dad, I remember I walked up to him and he's just laughing. He's like, oh my God, that was just the funniest thing I've ever seen. I'm like, oh, this is really not what I want to hear right now. And he's just like, well, at least you're trying. And I'm like, oh yeah, great, thanks. At least I'm trying. But he then didn't miss a game. And he then just became a huge fan of women's football. Huge fan of me and a huge supporter of me, especially when he could see us all improve, and when he then saw the juniors come into it. And then when I got into coaching, I was coaching under 18s at Waratahs, and he didn't miss a game. And he's coming out and watching me coach, and I'm just like, Dad, you don't have to be here. He goes, no, I'm not going to miss a game. This is great. This is great that, these young women are playing and that you're coaching. And and then I moved to Nightcliff with the Women's Premier League, and again, he never missed a game that I coached. So he was out there every week, and I think he lives through the players and sits on the sideline and gets more excited about things. And his wife a few times has had to tell him to be quiet because he's yelling at the girls or yelling at me to tell the girls to do something, or he's getting upset at the umpires, or something like that. He's very involved now and huge fan. But it was just that mentality, I think. And I think it's still, around for quite a few people, where it is, football's a boy sport, and that's how he was brought up. So for him to now change his mindset and be a huge fan of women's footy and see how much it's improved and see the success, women are having in the sport, to me, that's a huge win. I was able to do that with my dad. And, you know, if we can do that with other people, you know, that's great as well. But, you know, it's just takes a bit of time. But yeah, that first game, he's just laughing at me. I was just like, oh, great. This is going to be a long journey.
So tell me more of a timeline of your coaching career at Nightcliff Football Club. How many years and what was the journey like?
Yeah, so I stopped playing footy and netball pretty much at the same time. So I was about 34, and they didn't have a coach at Waratahs for the under 18 girls. So they asked me, they're like, "You coach netball, you'll be able to coach a football team." I'm like, a little bit different, but okay, I'm up for the challenge. So I coached the under 18s at Waratahs for 2 seasons, and then I just got into like the academy coaching at the same time, and really sort of enjoyed just coaching and being involved with just young people. And I just wanted to challenge myself a bit more, so I applied for the Nightcliff Premier League coaching role. I applied for a few other roles as well with a few other clubs as Premier League women's coaches. But yeah, was successful with Nightcliff. So I took that role as a bit of a challenge to myself. And yeah, I ended up being there for 5 seasons. So it's just this year that I've stepped away from Nightcliff and coaching for the minute why I'm in the talent role with AFLNT. So yeah, and it was a really great journey, you know, coaching a women's Premier League side. Yeah, I had a lot of enjoyment out of it. Huge learning curve for me. But yeah, it was really, really good.
Do you remember where you finished each season across those 5 years?
Yeah, so the first season we had success because we actually won a couple of games. So the first half of the season, you know, I remember getting home some days and I was almost in tears because I was like, oh my God, we're not improving. We're still losing by 100 points. So then I was doubting my own processes, but I stuck to them. And by the end of the season, I think we ended up winning 3 games, which was a huge success after, you know, the club not winning a game for so many seasons. The next season, we actually made it into finals. So we ended up 5th on the ladder and made it into finals. We lost out in the first final. The third season, we ended up being, I think it was 3rd on the ladder, and ended up progressing to the semi-finals, got knocked out. And then for the 4th season, I think minor premiers on top of the ladder, made it to the grand final and lost the grand final. And then last season, we were, I think, ended up 4th or 5th on the ladder. So still quite competitive. And that's just what we want. We just want to be competitive and try and just keep pushing for that grand final. Not that I'm there anymore, but I do know they're still aiming for that because I'm, you know, still close to quite a lot of the players. But yeah, so definitely improved over the 5 years. And I also got the opportunity while I was at the club to be one of the assistant coaches for the Men's Premier League. So the men's at the time, I was the midfield coach when they won the 2 premierships back-to-back. So that was a really cool experience to be a part of the men's program and be a part of the success as well. Which is awesome. And that was the year we were St. Mary's and it was a draw and it went into overtime in the grand final. That was, that was an experience, very hectic in that coach's box.
I can imagine. Actually, take me into the coach's box. What was it like? Was it calm, you know, as much as possible? Was it like
everyone processed it? Yeah, it was really funny because everyone processed it differently. I'm hands down was the calmest person in the box. I was just sitting there just going, look, at the end of the day, we actually can't do anything. Like it's up to the players now. And but everyone sort of had their own process. There was 4 of us in there. The head coach, there was 5 of us in there, sorry, because we had someone doing the board, the head coach and the 3 line coaches. And there was just 1 minute we're all quiet. Next thing you know, there's something being thrown against the window because some of the headsets come off and it's just flown against the window because someone's, kicked the ball in the wrong direction or missed a mark or a tackle or something like that. But then there was like moments of, someone was pacing up and back behind us because they just couldn't sit still because they were just like, oh my God, I don't know how to handle this. So they were pacing. So it was just a very kind of mixed emotions. Like I think that sort of, 15 minutes, like that last sort of 5 minutes of the actual game and then the overtime, so that 15, 20 minutes was, if you could name every emotion, every single one of us had it at some point. But there wasn't a lot you could do. As a coach, you just have to trust and back your players that they're going to finish it off and trust the process of the season that's just been, that they've got the experience to get through it. But yeah, as a coach, there was a lot happening. And it didn't help that because we're up in the box at TOO, it didn't help that our coach on the sideline took his headset off because he was so excited but also so anxious. So we actually couldn't get messages to the team either. So that just added to everybody's anxiety in the box as well because we actually could not do a thing about anything. So looking back, you kind of laugh about it because it's just so emotional. But in the moment, you're like, oh God, please just let this be like a good result. Please, please let that player kick that goal or mark that footy. And but no, it was wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, it sounds super exciting. It sounds to me like there may be a little bit of unfinished business coaching the women's side, having not won the premiership. Do you think that you'll be back to have a crack at that one day?
Look, I think I'll be back coaching for sure. Like I definitely miss that sort of connection with people and actually being involved with the actual team and being in the, inner sanctum of a team. So I'll definitely go back to coaching. What that looks like, I'm not sure. But yeah, I would definitely love to be a part of, be the head coach of a team that's successful in a grand final in the future. That would definitely be a goal. I've done it with netball. I'd love to be able to sort of tick that off with a football team as well.
So last one on Nightcliff women's side. How did you measure success over the 5 years?
It was, for me, it was probably just those small wins. Progressing up the ladder was definitely sort of one that you knew you were getting that sort of success. But for me, it's more about the players' success and seeing the players improve individually. So if I, had a player that had never played footy before, and then by the end of like the 4th season, she was a confident footballer, being able to kick the footy and hit a target, not hesitate around the ball and actually take that tackle or head over the ball and drive her legs through. And I saw that in a lot of the players I coach where they were very sort of timid and not confident in themselves and their ability. By, season 4 or 5, to see that improve, to me, that's success. So it wasn't necessarily on the ladder or in the results or anything like that. For me, it was more about the players and making sure if I could see that in players, like I knew I was on the right path and had the right processes in place. Because if you can give your players those tools to go out on the field and execute, a strong game, you've done your job as a coach, really. Like if you can do that and instill that in players, you can't sort of fault your processes when it comes down to it. So that for me was success, and that's how I sort of measured it. And looking back on the players I've coached, a lot of them hadn't had, there's probably about 4 or 5 that had never had another football coach. I was their only football coach. And to see how they've improved and to see now they're strong footballers in the actual competition, it makes you really proud, and to know that you sort of impacted on that person's life on and off the field. So to me, that's success.
Yeah, you just mentioned on and off the field. And what I find really interesting is that I've had the pleasure of being able to interview a lot of coaches, and particularly in the last few episodes of this show. The last episode was with Heidi Thompson, who's the coach at Waratahs. She's entering her third season on a 3-year contract. And she talked in that last episode about the development of people outside of the game, but also development in their skills. And so they obviously made the grand final last year and lost it to Pint. Heidi was already talking about, not that she said it to the players, but for her, that season was already a success before they even made the grand final because of stuff that she was measuring success on. And ultimately, like what she said on the episode for this upcoming season, one of her focuses, you mentioned themes as well, one of her focuses for this season is improving kicking. So it's so interesting that I think the most successful coaches, and when I say successful, I'm referring to successful in terms of, yes, like winning games, but more importantly, like developing players and as people outside of sport, just in terms of like confidence, resilience, all that type of thing. There's a real theme. There's some very common themes that come across with all good coaches.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm big on like just empowering people. I think that's the big thing. As a coach, you just want to empower people, and you just want to, encourage them to keep learning, and encouraging them to be the best versions of themselves. And if you can do that, where you're empowering them to go out, and it might be applying for a job that they didn't think they could do. At the moment, being in the academy space, we've got quite a few sort of young players that are doing year 12 and applying for uni applications. And I've already sat down with a couple of players and helped them with their, a scholarship application and going through that sort of process, but empowering them to say, you can do this. Why can't you apply for that? Why can't you sort of put yourself out there? Just one player yesterday was sort of sitting here talking about, she wants to sort of, go down south and, go down and, see what the VFL is all about, or the quaffle. And I said, well, have you reached out to any clubs? And she's like, no, I was just waiting for them to contact me. And I'm like, well, no, how about we, put feelers out there and you reach out to them, have a think about where you want to go and what clubs you want to be involved at. And let's be on the front foot and, reach out to them. And she's like, oh, can I do that? Or like, should I do that? And I'm like, of course, let's put yourself out there, mate. Like, you're a great player. Why not put yourself out there and give you that opportunity? Yes, some may say no, but what if they say yes? Like, and you shouldn't just wait for them to come to you, because you might be waiting a while. Like, they might think you've got other plans, or they might think you're not interested. So let's just put it out there, because you just never know. So if you can, for me, that's like, I get a real sort of sense of fulfillment if I can help people, not only on the field, but off the field. But yeah, as a coach, I think if you're, I guess, a good coach, you'll have that effect. Even if you're not meaning to do it off the field, you'll have that effect on their life off the field without even realizing it. So for me, it's a really big thing. And I'm big on just that. I have a big thing, and I'm big on, like, it's going to sound silly, but I'm big on like Wonder Woman, and just the power pose in itself, and just being powerful. And you are a superhero. Why can't you, if something sort of faces you on the field that you think, oh, I'm just going to give up, or even in life, like, nah, you have superpowers. So let's use those and bring in that strength yourself to be able to like overcome it, whatever it might be.
Yeah, you're starting to touch on so many aspects of mindset, from like self-esteem and confidence to resilience. And sport really is a vehicle that can drive so many areas of life and improve your life as a whole. So what is your goal for this role that you're in now?
Look, my goal for in this role, I would, I'd love to just be able to have an impact on some players' lives, but I'll and give them opportunities they may not necessarily get, just in their day-to-day sort of moving along. I'd love to bring in a really nice, like, clear pathway. So players, when they're sort of, even as young as sort of 12, 13, can look at something and say, look, if I play this carnival, I then get to play this carnival, and then I get to go to do this. And they've just got something to aim for. And they can see that as kids, that if I keep going along this pathway, I can potentially reach my goals. Because, goals, everyone should have goals, and everyone should be always, out to achieve something, whatever that might be. But being in sort of, I guess, this role, it's about showing kids that if they work hard, because it's hard work, it won't just fall on your lap. That's why you have to put yourself out there. That's why you have to train. But if I keep working hard and I achieve, playing in this carnival or getting recognised in this representative team or doing this and doing that, and they can see that clearly, it makes it more tangible and more achievable for young people, I think, because I think if you can't see it, it's hard to believe it. But if you can see it and then you start achieving it bit by bit up that ladder and you keep climbing it, hopefully you do then get to the end where you are drafted and then get to go to an AFL club and get that whole experience of hopefully having a great AFL career. So, I'd love to be able to, bring that in. We already have some great pathways, but just to really make that clear for young people and help them along their journey, I think would be a really awesome achievement over the next couple of years.
Yeah, best of luck with it. What is the big picture for you?
Really good question, because I think that changes. And I think it changes often, but that's okay because we're all growing and all learning, and, priorities change. Big picture for me right now is just to I've only been in this role for about 7 months. So really just want to focus in on this role and then just take any opportunities along the way. 2 weeks ago, I was lucky enough to arrange and take our two young girls down to the Gold Coast Suns. So they spent 5 days down there where they got to train with the AFLW girls. They got to go to AFLW game. They went pre-game, after game, play a review the next day. So got the full experience, but then I also got the full experience. So I was able to take some personal development out of that and, shadow coaches, shadow other, like the manager down there, things like that. So I think if I can just keep learning and take opportunities as they come and just to continue to grow myself. But definitely at the moment, it's just this role and to really try and, create a legacy here that someone else can sort of carry on.
If the opportunity came up, because you're going to be making some incredible networks, if the opportunity came up to work at an AFLW club or I shouldn't say AFLW, but any AFL club, would you take it?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to lie. That would be amazing. Like if anyone got an opportunity to, I guess, be involved with an AFL club or even just like the national talent team, I would 100%, jump on that opportunity to be involved in that for sure.
Shannon, I want to wish you best of luck for all of that. I really hope I see you coaching a AFL club one day and winning a premiership at that AFL club. That would be awesome. I knew that lady.
One step at a time.
Exactly. I actually have on my phone, my little desktop, unless my kids have changed it. They have actually. My little wallpaper on my phone is 2 ladders, and it's a picture I got off the internet. And on one ladder on the one side, it's got rungs really, like the first rung is really high up and they're very far spread apart. And then on the other ladder, rungs start really low and there's lots of them all the way up. And the person on the first ladder, where the rungs are really spread apart, can't reach the first rung. And the other person on the other ladder, where it's got lots of little rungs, is at the top and he's up in the clouds. And that's just a reminder for me, like small steps, because I'm that first one. I'm always like trying to take big leaps. But
I'm definitely about those small steps. Like and I have to keep, as a coach too, you have to remind people of that too. Just trust the process. You think what we're doing now is madness or you're hating life because you're running laps at the footy oval or whatever it might be. But just trust the process because it's one step at a time and you'll eventually get there if you keep aiming for your goals. So, yeah.
And I think if you looked back on your life at where you've come from and what you were doing, I'm pretty sure we went to uni together. I'm pretty sure we did a
We
sports
did.
science, yeah, sports science
Yeah.
degree together back in the early 2000s. Like, what were you doing that for? Do you remember why you
Um,
started a sports science degree?
I started it to be a PE teacher. And everyone still thinks I'm a teacher, and I've never taught anyone in my life apart from coaching. So even I coach teachers, and they would be like, "What school do you teach at?" I'm like, "I don't. I'm not a I've never been a teacher." But that's why I started that. But I only was there for 12 months, and then I deferred to go away and play netball. And I never went back to uni. So
Oh,
I've
you
done
didn't
it.
finish your sports science degree.
Nah, I've never never finished it.
Oh, well, I did a double degree in sports science and teaching, and I always thought you were in the straight sports science stream.
Mm.
I don't, but honestly, you should go back and finish it and then do the grad
Yeah.
dip in teaching and become, it's such a good degree.
Yeah. Oh, no, hands down. It sounds like a great degree, but I just never went back and finished it. I went and played netball, and then, yeah, moved back to Darwin and just got a job, and yeah, just have never done it. So I've done it like a lot of sort of, I guess, smaller sort of diplomas and things like that, but never gone back and finished that degree. But yeah, the aim was to be a PE teacher back then. And yeah, have never done that. Keep
Well,
getting
so
sidetracked.
you keep getting too many good opportunities, and when you're successful and you know, good at what you do, you're always going to get plenty of opportunities. So yeah, probably don't need to. But if we were to go back, because this is about 20 years ago now, if reflecting on the last 20 years of your life, inside of sport, outside of sport, what is the thing that you're most proud of in that last 20 years?
Um, oh, I'm most proud of. Um, Look, I was probably pretty proud that I was able to actually move away at age sort of 18 to Brisbane, where I didn't know anybody, with the help of my mum. Like, my mum's now passed, but my mum was a huge sort of supporter of me, and, my best friend. But she more or less, kind of kicked me out of school, not out of school, out of home, and in a nice way. And yeah, I actually went to Brisbane on my own, didn't know anybody, and set up a life there for myself. So I lived there for like 5 years. Played netball down there, got a job, made a really good network of friends, which became a second family. And to do that as a young sort of person, a lot of people, these days can't do that, or fail at doing that, or end up, moving back with mum and dad. And that's fine too. But I was really proud that I was able to do that, and actually survive on my own and become sort of, I guess, an adult. And then to be able to like have that ability to move home and help mum when she wasn't at her best, and help dad and support them. Proud of that as well. So yeah, that was probably like the last 20 years. There's plenty to be proud of, but actually moving out on your own and doing it on your own where you don't know anyone in a pretty big city is, yeah, you got to be proud of yourself for that.
Big lesson there for anyone, for everyone, but particularly anyone that's coming up to that point in their life. Shannon, I just want to acknowledge you for that, and also all of the coaching and that you do and the lives that you've touched. And thank you for your time on the Mind Your Body show today. But before I go, I would like to get into our 10 in 10. So I've worded you up before we started recording. As you've been talking, I've been writing, and I've got 9 things here, plus a generic number 10 that I ask everybody, that I'm going to ask you for the first thing that comes to mind on. You ready to go?
Sure. Can't wait.
All right. Number 1, job related, territory talent.
Young people.
Number 2, coaching.
Football.
Number 3, being part of a male dominated sport.
Challenging.
Number 4, the AFLW.
Pathway for women.
Number 5, growing up in the country.
Oh, look, fun. It was just fun to grow up in the country, and be close to family, and yeah, just fun. Yeah.
Number 6, what was it like traveling around the country with your family in a caravan?
An experience. Like, I think any family that's done that sort of traveling for like a long period of time is definitely an experience, and you just come away with so many memories as well. So an experience and memories.
Would you ever do it again, like now as an adult?
With my if I ever have my own family, I think it would be cool to do that, and travel around, because I think you can learn a lot by doing that with your kids, or even just with you and your partner, or you can learn a lot, and you just create so many memories, and you go back, and even now I go back and look at the photos and I'm like, kind of remember but kind of don't, but it's really cool that you've got that memory, or something might trigger it. Yeah, so I think it's really cool to do. And yeah, I probably would. Don't know if I'd probably find a better caravan, or, something. Not sure. Like, it was very small space for 5 people, but anyway, we made it work.
Number 7, Darwin.
Home. It's definitely my home. I know I sort of grew up in country Victoria, but Darwin's definitely home. My brother and sister and my dad are still here, and it's definitely somewhere where I just feel safe and comfortable. And yeah, it's definitely home.
I didn't realize you had a brother and sister that were still here. Do they play any sport?
I only laugh because they're probably the most opposite of playing sport. My sister was very good at swimming, but no, she doesn't play sport, and hasn't played sport for a long time. She kind of got back into netball there for a couple of years. But now her and I, we have our sister time on a Saturday morning. We do deep water running. So that's sort of our time that we do. And my brother, not really. Like, he tried, but he's just yeah, no. He pumps iron and goes to the gym. He's one of those dudes. But they're both parents and have got 3 kids each. So they're very focused on their families and that, but definitely weren't sporty by any means. And even just watching sport, like, it's me and my dad that sit there and watch the footy. It's not it's not 4 of us watching footy at all. Like, my sister can't stand it, and my brother kind of watches it whenever he sort of feels like it. But yeah, it's me and my dad that is sitting there, that you can't talk to us because we're that invested in the game.
Number 8, the importance of failure.
Extremely important. I think for anybody to succeed, you have to have that failure, and it's just going to come in life. Unfortunately, it will. We can't be successful 100% of the time. We're all human. Things aren't going to go our way, and I think we all need to learn how to sort of handle that failure, to be able to then come out and overcome that. And some people don't handle failure well at all. But then some people do, and usually the people that know how to handle it and can sort of grow and learn from that have the most success. But yeah, I think it's super important.
Number 9, fatherly support.
Yeah, I think any parent support is really sort of strong. Like, for me, like, I was lucky. I had really, really good parents, and I wouldn't change my parents for anything in the world. And to have my dad's support, especially through my football journey, and for him to change his mindset and grow, for a man that I didn't think would ever change his mindset about anything, because he's the most stubborn man I've ever met. I think I'm really grateful to have supportive parents. And yeah, grateful would be this word there for sure.
And number 10, this is a generic question which I ask everybody. It's time travel. You can go forward in time or back in time to any point in time. To which point in time would you go to, and why?
The only one that sticks out for me, and I use it as an example quite often in my coaching sort of journey, is when I was in Brisbane playing netball. I had an opportunity to, I guess, try out for the state team in Brisbane, and I didn't show up for the trials. And I would go back and show up, because I was then told by my coach 2 days later. She called me and she's like, why didn't you show up for the the Queensland state trials. And I said, I remember calling my mum and I was just crying and I was just really overwhelmed and I just couldn't do it. So I stayed home. And she's like, well, all you had to do was just show up. If you had shown up, you would have got into the team because they wanted you in the team and you just had to show up. And I learned a lot from that. Again, that's failure. Learn a lot. That showing up is just half the battle. And if you can just show up, sometimes you can reap the rewards from just being there. So it's an example I use a lot in my coaching, but it is something that I guess if I had the opportunity to go back, I would definitely change that and I would have just shown up.
One last one as we wrap up here. What advice would you give to any young person?
Any young person would be just to keep trying, and just if you've got a goal, you've got to work hard. It's not going to come to you easily. Some things may just, and if you get an opportunity, take it. Don't say no to opportunities that come your way because those opportunities are few and far between. So definitely take up any opportunities you can. And if it doesn't succeed the first time, keep trying because you just never know. And you're only young once. So just, push through and you will get success if you keep working hard.
Shannon, it's been a great chat. Thank you so much for your time today on the Mind Your Body Show.
No worries at all. Thanks for having me.
What's the most overlooked part of running, but the most important? Your mechanics. My new course, Running Mechanics 101, is a 9-module course which will teach you how to run more efficiently and effectively. For free instant access, simply head on over to jacobandreae.com.